Hi, it's Susan from World Peaceful, and this poem that I've actually written this morning is a follow-up from yesterday. The poem I was referring to in yesterday's video, which was about freedom of speech, was the Civil Manifesto, which I've actually attached as a link to that video. This poem I've actually just written this morning, so it's actually a follow-up to the video, and it's called Awakening from the Dream of Powerlessness. Freedom of speech is to speak without punishment in freedom. A civil society Q&A discussing perspectives, angles, viewpoints. It is a forum enabling each to challenge, question, and share wisdom without reprisal, legal, physical, covert, or brute force. It is to respect the differences in a democracy of contrasting colours. For this full spectrum is not dominance, but allowance. It is to make a space for diversity as life is shape-changing. It is the sum of the parts creating a greater holistic reality. For as we clash it up, we see more than self-interest, as new horizons are emerging. From conflict, we learn that the world is not in our image, as each perspective is a point of light, albeit a unique experience. We recognise power as not control, but fear seeking to take control as it is out of control. We feel an infinite spirit rising to meet each challenge with courage. As fearsome times call upon heroism, as true leaders are the phoenix rising from the ashes. For everyone is a hero in waiting. Everyone has the power to choose. For we can cower in a corner terrorised by imagined media spin, or we can question the author of fearful stories and learn to rewrite our own. Repression is the messenger who comes to challenge powerlessness in the masses. For apathy invites creeping control, as you say nothing to exploitation or injustice. You don't want the hassle, so you just comply. You seldom ask why. Powerlessness invites the bully who is seeking your power, as implied rights are meaningless. Fines, taxes, restrictions, laws are the tools tyranny uses to finance power, as you will pay without question. You will do the right thing, be a good person, not rock the boat, as life is too busy to resist. So you plug into the contrived matrix of technology, disconnecting from life. Your eyes fixed on controlled media feeds, ads, videos, texts, as addiction to need is the greed. You walk past the homeless, ignoring the plight of others, for they made their bed, you say. To opt out is easier than to confront the social malaise, requiring your response. Each seeks distraction from pain, as there is no time for community. Yet until you face the pain, life will bring you more to test your mettle. For peace is not appeasement. The wolf coming in sheep's clothing is of our own making from a higher perspective. Democracy is not a given. It came from hard-won battles in his story. For the projection of power is the demon we must confront peacefully. To be the change you wish to see is to live by example. Therefore, if you want respect, give it to all. If you want democracy, live it fully. If you want inclusivity, invite all others into your world without fear or favour. If you want freedom of speech, then speak up and demonstrate it in action. For as you step into the future world you imagine, you create it. For you always had power to create fear or love. And this is the power to choose in every moment. The universal democracy is to decide and then select the future you desire. For each thought is a vote. Each vote co-creates what will be. And what will be will set you free from revolving door conflicts and endless wars. For we must resolve the past for good. We must face the violence that financed our way of life. We must turn off the television or iPhone and start to dialogue with our neighbours. We must unplug from the matrix and find the real Zion. For peace on earth is an inner journey, homeward bound. The demons, the devils run around in our minds as we give them power by focus. Fear is false evidence appearing real. For it only has power when you imagine it as true power. Yet what if fear is untrue, an illusion designed to dominate you? What if we question our thoughts about imagined realities? Why not do the work to set yourself free? What if we stop imagining the worst possible scenarios and start to envisage the world we truly want to see? What if we ignore the facts and dream weave a new world without order? For this surely will come to pass as night follows day. For one cannot bear false witness to any other when the truth sets you free. And the tyrant is the mirror reflecting back to us what we refuse to own. For when we take responsibility for all of it, we have the power to change what we fear. For what we see in the world is us, in fear, believing it is out there. To de-escalate fear, one must face our childhood wounds, as we were told, no, put that down, let it go, do as I say, and frightened into compliance, not freedom. We were not guided to explore yes, to learn from consequences, to make a mistake, take risks, and to fall over. When we fall over, we learn to get up again. This is the true resilience we are invited to explore. When we hurt ourselves, we learn to heal ourselves without chemicals. When we break the rules, we learn why rules existed, but we can rewrite new rules. Yet the rules of life are not to tidy your room, but allow a person to grow naturally. It is not to fearfully control what is said, but to listen deeply to the protest coming from pain. For she or he is me, reaching out for clarity. So as I write out of my own freedom of speech, I feel for a wisdom that is perennial and eternal. I see that life is infinite possibility and that life is truly good no matter appearances. The yin versus the yang seeks to divide and separate rather than allow harmony to restore homeostasis. Apparent chaos creates another yin-yang somewhere else as chaos theory self-replicates. The dark is the light and the light is the dark, reflecting the mirror of self-awareness, awakening. One creates the other as the challenge is the test. So be a light unto the darkness, but curse it not. For it is the wise teacher, not the wolf. It is the friend in disguise scaring you to speak up or shut down. As always, you are at choice. For death is not an ending, but a new beginning. And this system is dying to live. It has traversed its used-by date as it is no longer working. Artificial intelligence and automation are desperate attempts to keep the old illusion going. Yet this story is coming to an end, albeit a conclusion. For security and power were never the end games. It was to know yourself and be true. It was to get the joke in the end, not the punchline. For we will awaken from yet another nightmare to the dawning of a new day. For as the dawn breaks through the dark, real hopes dissolves the mist to allow a new day dawning as we are yawning. And you are not alone in the struggle, as the butterfly must break free from the cocoon. The chrysalis is by design. Transformation is metamorphis, dawning. So allow the struggle, allow the fear, allow change to fall like the ripe fruit, as your happy destiny is unavoidable, as day follows night. We are waking up from a long sleep to realize the dream was never real. For this is the sacred seal opening at last, as we begin to live again in a universe of higher octaves, to enjoy the harmonic convergence of a renewable life. So that was the poem I wrote this morning. As soon as I woke up, it came to me. And it's a great feeling. I shared it with my friend and my mother because I'm visiting my mum. Because it's so easy to fall into the trap of seeing the enemy out there, the dark, bad, this and that. Truth is, it's all mirroring back to us. And we can sit in a victim state and blame that other, or you can find the hero within. And this is the hero's journey. My archetype as a clown, when I travelled the world as a peace clown and travelled to Russia, I realised I was a peace clown there, and the archetype of the fool was what awakened within me. Real hopes is the acronym of the fool, really. So that's to take responsibility, empathy, awareness, love, honesty, oneness, peace, enjoyment, and service. That's the song of real hopes, which is the universe. So when I awakened as a fool, I realised it was okay to make mistakes. The fool always plays around and trips over and says hi to everybody. The fool doesn't have any favourites. Fool loves everybody. So when I used to clown out in the public all over the world, I saw everyone as my family. And as I educated myself when I went through university, I became an economics fool. And I came to understand the system that we created, which tended to focus on self-interest. So how can I blame the people who were self-interested and detached when they're all part of a system not of their making? They just were taught about that system and they all believed prosperity was going to come out of it. Well, the problem with the system and the weakness in the system is it has infinite growth modelling. It means it's all about producing lots and lots of what we call in economics widgets. So it's maximising outputs. But the planet has homeostasis. It has support systems here that are in balance. The system was not designed for our greed. It was only designed for our need, and there was an abundance with that. The tribal communities understood that rhythm of nature because they lived in it. We're all in houses, we're in condominiums, we're in companies. We're very disconnected from the real world, which is outside our doors. We don't even connect with the animal life unless we go on a holiday. But these are so short. You might have 2 weeks a year for yourself. So the system enslaved us in a lifestyle where we believed our best interests were served through making lots of money and our security was ensured. But as we can see, things are changing now because we're traversing tipping points ecologically. System can't sustain all of us wanting the same thing. You would need 4 planets to sustain the type of economic growth that the United States and Australia and Canada, UK, and other various countries around the world who are all very productive. You'd need another 4 Earths to sustain that growth if every single human on the earth decides to take on capitalism or democracy. Well, democracy in itself is really more about representation of the people. That's a philosophy underpinning a system. But the systems we're in today are more capitalist driven because we're getting more and more corporate power who are controlling behind the scenes. And they're always going to operate out of self-interest because that's what they were taught. Those who have held all the money have believed that they are somehow in this unique position and the rest of the world is in service to them. That's a delusion. It's not true. They, like us, have come into this world birthed the same way. From where, they have to find out. And once you start to connect to that greater cosmic worldview, you start to recognise that we didn't make ourselves. We didn't make the earth. And look how brilliant it is. I've travelled the world and I've looked at the Andes, I've been to the Himalayas, I've been to the Great Pyramids in Giza, I've been to Stonehenge, I've been to the Mayan pyramids, travelled my own country by myself with a tent. I really went out and explored my world. And I was absolutely stunned by the beauty and the magnificence of this planet, which we all take for granted. We enjoy David Attenborough on television exploring the natural life, but we're not out in it. And, we think success is having all this money, accumulating piles of things. It's not. The true success, as I indicated in my poem, is to know thyself and be true, and you can only do that by challenging yourself. I had to face all my fear. That's why I went out, travelled Australia alone. That's why I went around the world to 20 countries and I got on the street as a clown. I mean, that's a scary thing to do if you think about it. I don't know the language, I don't know the people, but yet with clowning there was a universal language. And I have Dr. Patch Adams to thank for that. He was the one, through his brother Wildman, who invited me to Russia and opened a door for me. I had no money. A benefactor came and paid for my trip. Found myself in the orphanages of Russia, on the streets. I came to see the power of service. Patch talked about the love revolution. He was quite right. It's all about love. I talk about that in my poem. We're all creating, everything. You're choosing love or fear in every moment. You can choose the opportunity or you can say I'm in deficit. People talk about losing their wealth. Well, I live in homelessness and I don't have a permanent income and I'm happy. Not because of anything to do with my external circumstances. It's because I know myself and I'm true. That's why I said in my poem, your happy destiny is unavoidable. When you know yourself, as you know yourself, you start to see that you're not in control anyway. So life flows out from me, and I recognise that things have to come to me because I can't buy them. If I get given a dinner, it's because someone buys it for me. It's not because I afford it. But then I see it as a gift when it comes. I really enjoy that dinner, whereas most people who do it all the time, and I used to be one of them, would take it for granted. When the money comes and I only get a very tiny amount, my mum sends me a little bit so I have food. But when it comes, I feel this enormous joy. I'm so grateful. I never asked for that. And yet this person who loves me wants to make sure my well-being is in hand. That is social security. It's not in the realm of the government. Social security was always in the bonds of love that we create around us. It's not about just forging ahead and doing what you want. When you're in community with people, you have to consider their needs. The words "consider the lilies of the field, they neither toil nor spin" come to me, and I'm not a religious person, but that is what I see. It means when you relax, when you let life come and go, it's not different from that similar idea of the lilies in the field that don't toil. In other words, they don't work really hard. They don't spin really fast in order to get what they want. They are just living in their true nature. The world ecological system is not an economic system. It's companion planting. It's a energy system that serves all parts of that system. It's not a IT electronic motherboard grid where everything's being controlled. The blueprint of nature was designed in order for that system to thrive. It wasn't to work extremely hard to feed the greed of something. The ecological system, from its blueprint, automatically, and this is probably the automation that people are probably looking at, automatically serves the other. But it's a love-based system. There is communication through the root networks of plants. They actually communicate. There's chemical synthesis that happens. We've got photosynthesis, so plants themselves feed themselves through the light hitting their leaves and chlorophyll converting that into energy. I mean, that's an intelligent design. It's not a control paradigm. It's an intelligent system that ensures all the needs are met. Now, if something can't adapt in that system, it just dies off, and death is not a drama. Death is as natural as birth. It's as natural as breathing in and out, because we're energy moving through a system. So when we pass over, when it's the end of our own life, we move into another reality. And some might say, no, I'm sure someone said, who was very prominent, and I know who it is, that it was all dark when he passed over. Well, there's millions of others who don't have that experience, who are met by something of the light. Some people recognize whatever this being is that meets them. Many say they see their family members. So if you're with someone who's dying, they often can see people coming into the room from their family that have passed over. So that's why I said death is not an ending. You know, I mean, the system is dying to live. There is a death of something, but it's meant in the metaphorical sense in respect of my poem, in that a system that's no longer working is dying. And that's what should naturally happen to that system if it's not working. Not only is the system not working for the benefit of the whole, it's extracting so much in the way of resources that it's actually undermining its own life support systems. And so that survival impetus for some might mean, you know, saving themselves, creating some sort of lifeboat for the few of them, and let the others go and solve their own fate. I don't think in that way. I see us all as connected. What you do to another returns to the self. We're all in it together. And there's a great love and joy. I see the Titanic, interestingly enough, that film, you know, where, you know, they're at the bow of the boat, if you remember. The two lovers are at the top and that boat's about to go down. And that's the real horror of a ship sinking, is those last moments where, oh my God, I've got to face death. This is another fear that we're facing. In truth, another door opens, but in respect of the film, he thought through ways to survive. He wasn't pushing people down to drown them. When they were in the water, they weren't drowning. Some were so panicked that they were forcing people underwater. But the two leading characters were not doing that. They were just surviving. And he placed her up on that piece of debris so that her body wouldn't freeze. He stayed in the water. This is the heroism. He then talked her through the fear of her situation, and he said, you're going to go on. He said, envisage you're going to have babies. You're going to live on to be an old lady. And you're going to promise me, Rose, that you're going to live. You're going to be the Rose. You're going to live. He forced her to promise him, no matter how tough it gets, you will survive. And she promised him. And he held on to that piece of debris. He stayed with her, and then he let go. She let him go. In truth, he passed into another realm. He was not dead, in truth. We think it's the end. Titanic sunk. That's the end. It's not. And interestingly enough, I've written this in poetry too, it was the industrialists that convinced the captain to pick up speed because he wanted to get to New York early to surprise everyone. His ego was what made that decision. He didn't care or think about the passengers because it was an unsinkable ship. We think the same of the Earth. It's an unsinkable ship. It's not. We're sinking our ship. Yet I'm here to say to you, there is real hopes when you come into alignment with your true nature. When you no longer fear the wizard, I always think of the Wizard of Oz when you whip back the curtain and it's a little guy on a machine who's, really scary. This is the Orwellian, image. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Can you enter into fearful times with wonder? Can you not be tempted to jump onto bandwagons to down with the, witch or whatever it is? Down with it. Can you start to come together in community, relearn democracy? Can you come together and start to envisage the sort of world that's going to work? Okay, yes, mistakes have been made. Yes, we've been confronted with control paradigms, but that's coming out of fear. Can we find the compassion towards those who are very fearful and who have been co-opted by other powers who are equally fearful because they're trying to survive what looks to them like a sinking ship for sure? I always remember the footage I just saw. I will always remember this footage that I saw yesterday, which is it was an aerial sort of shot of Americans running because a car backfired. They all ran thinking it was bullets. That's what the media spin does. If you keep hooking yourself up to a television, you're going into mind control. If you keep plugging into your phone, that's all mind control. They're directing and you are participating by pulling forward fearful images that shape change you. It's not the real world. When you live a simple life, which I do, you start to realise the world is actually very beautiful. People are very lovely. And I've certainly found that everywhere I've went. Doesn't mean there aren't fearful people or people who are negative, but they're all just in fear. They're in pain. If you look at it for what it really is. There is no bad people. In truth, they're just suffering. Or they're disconnected and they don't feel for the other. How can I project condemnation onto anyone because they can't feel? You can't force someone to feel, but we can educate early childhood. We can reconnect the children. We get them off the iPads. We start to bring real hopes into classrooms. We create peaceful schools. We role model the future we want to create. You don't keep indoctrinating people with violent games, violent videos, violent movies, and then wonder why there's shootings. You don't, badge a video game a shooter game and then get shocked when all these young people kill each other or someone goes off on a rampage because he doesn't know how to control his anger because he feels suppressed and powerless and he's trying to vent that. And this isn't, by no means am I condoning any of that. I'm a non-violent peace person myself. I'm trained in peace education. I'm just saying that you have to take back your own power. You have to take responsibility for the part you played. You have to also recognise that when you give power away, someone is going to keep taking it. You have to create that boundary and say no with love and respect if you feel it's not serving you. If you keep complying with things that are unjust, if you keep believing you have no power, then the world will mirror that to you, and that's how it all works. And this message is for everyone, not just the public. It's for those in government who believe they're powerless. It's for those in the intelligence who believe they are, in the military who follow orders without question. Is it serving you? Many soldiers come back with PTSD. Many have been conscientious objectors to their command. I've met them. They came out when they believed the wars were illegal. This is conscience voting. Now, you can create all sorts of laws to shut down other voices, but ultimately someone else is going to pop up. That was the yin and the yang that I referred to in the poem. The yin and the yang was symbolic of the dark and the light element. If anybody's seen Chinese yin and yang images, they're a circle, and half of the circle is dark, the other half is white. And essentially that symbol is talking about change. So the dark changes into the light changes into the dark. It's in a circular one-way direction. When those two are in balance, we get harmony, because you cannot eradicate the dark out of life. So people who fight against the dark are only expanding it. This is why you cannot have an enemy no matter who you are. You'll only expand the very thing you don't want, because as you focus on it, you create it. This is the law of attraction. So in order for us to come back to homeostasis in alignment with planetary systems, we have to recalibrate ourselves through developing philosophies, which I've already written. You're welcome to look at Real Hope Program and Awaken the Full. These are philosophies of harmony. The values and the virtues are what unite us in truth. You cannot force unification. You can try for totalitarianism, but ultimately it always falls, because it's the dark trying to totally control everything, minimize the light, but all it does is actually expands the light. That's why you get counter-revolution happening. Always what you push against pushes back. It's a natural law. So I'm just saying that human beings are all part of nature, and those responses to empires rising and falling have been since time immemorial. It doesn't work. And you don't get it until you get it, as they say. You don't awaken until you awaken. And then you start to see. That's why I can't hold, I really don't dislike anybody, because I can see they just simply don't know. You don't know what you don't know is ignorance. When you know you don't know, you start to awaken to the possibilities. You open your mind and you invite in new ways of seeing. And this is the philosophy that is awakening to this renewable earth. I called it the harmonic convergence. It's the true harmony which converges, because it's our nature to be at peace in truth. We just haven't been taught, or it's been suppressed. So I'm going to leave that with you now to contemplate. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Don't fight against those very things that are fearsome. Illuminate truth. Speak up, of course. But come to that round table with suggestions to be in service to those others, because they too are looking for the light as well. And that light is really just a metaphor for enlightenment, for expanding of our thinking to seeing more, because it is our nature to expand our civilization, which we're on the cusp of doing. Hence my reference to the cocoon and the chrysalis. We are opening and fighting out of that struggle, is to break free of those tourniquets that have held us down into that butterfly of infinite possibility. And that indeed is where we're going. So with that, I send you love, peace, freedom of speech, and to know that your happy destiny is actually unavoidable. Bye.